Welcome everybody. Today we're going to start our how-to series on bodywork. We're going to be going through some stuff, some panels, and doing some repair. You can see this door here is for my 75 Monty. It was a nice door that came from Arizona. A couple dents and stuff in it that you'll see. We'll get fixing that, and we'll kind of do a demo on all that stuff. I had this door media blasted. Everything was epoxy coated right after it was media blasted. You can see it took a couple scratches and stuff along the route home, but even though it came from Arizona, still a little bit of rot in there. So we got a little bit of rust repair. I have another door over here that's very similar. You can see this huge dent that's in it. I'm gonna try to do a little bit of working on that, see how I feel, but I epoxied the backside. The plan is with this one is to do a door skin, and I have an OEM NOS door skin from 1975 that I'm going to throw on that door. The tricky thing will be getting these little pegs back on there in the right positions. But today, what we're going to focus on is rust repair. Obviously, the cleaner you have this, the better. So I had some stuff media blasted. This has been blasted the same time. It's been about a month now. It's not flash rusted or anything like that. I have an air conditioner in my garage, so I keep it climate controlled. That helps out to save the flash rust from happening. The more humid it is outside, the quicker that thing is going to rust and create problems for me, so the faster you really need to get the epoxy on it. The epoxy, I did do 2 coats just to hold everything off. Now, like you can see, I can let this thing sit forever if I want, come back to it whenever, as long as there's no moisture in there. The biggest thing with this door is there is no rust on the bottom side of the lip. So this is all solid, and that's where they always rust out. These lips get all rusted out, and then that creates a problem. Now you can do a patch up, you could do across the whole door, but I'm gonna tell you, the smaller you can keep the patch, the less bodywork you're gonna have, and the more patience you have with this, the better off your repair is gonna be. So, getting into the nitty gritty, I've already kind of checked out my rust to see what I got. I've got 2 options here. I've kind of etched out my options for the patch. I can do a full length patch all the way around. The downside to that is the closer we get to this edge, it is double walled, but the more heat we're gonna be distributing to this edge, the chances for burnout are gonna be greater and greater. I do wanna save this hole as much as I can. It doesn't necessarily matter where this hole is, specifically because there's a little bit of wiggle room inside the back where there is a screw that goes in and holds the trim on. So I could always drill that hole back out, ream it out if I needed to. This front face doesn't really matter. I'd like to leave it there just for originality, just so I don't have any issues. So I could make a little patch that comes up and around. However, I'm kind of suspecting that this rust, generally, if your last pit is right here, you're gonna have rust out to here, so you're gonna wanna come out a little further. That's where I'm kind of just, I haven't made my decision yet as to what I'm gonna do. I think the first step I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cut this out with a cutoff wheel. I'm gonna saw it out, flip it over on the backside, and see what this backside looks like. If it looks fairly solid, if it's surface rusty, I may go a little further with it. I don't wanna go huge on this. I don't wanna put a door skin on this. This would be a good candidate for a door skin. However, there's really nothing wrong with the door. There's some dents and stuff that are in it, but dents can be metal worked, and this metal is super thick. So I've got my little welder here. It's a gas 110 welder. You've got your gas tank on the back. It's going to be Star Gold is what I've got on it, which is just an argon carbon dioxide based gas. It is 7525 is what it should say right there where it's ripped out. But that's what you're going to use for your gas. Now the gas is super simple. You just set it up. Once you got it set, you're pretty much good. Now you do have to watch out while you're welding, of course, because if you run out of gas, your welds are going to change. Once the tank starts getting kind of close to the end, you may have to turn the pressure up just a little bit to get it to kind of force the rest of it out. But generally, when I get this thing set and I'm running at the end of my tank and it's getting close to the end here, I've already called in another tank at that point. Excuse me. And I already know that I've got about, when it gets to about 10 PSI, I know that I've got about roughly about 30 minutes left of welding, and that's continuous welding. So if I need a tack weld here or a tack weld there, it's usually okay. But this is a great welder to start off with. It is a little more expensive. It's a Miller-Matic 141. You got auto set features here. I kind of tweak everything a little bit. You can see my wire speed settings and stuff. Everybody's gonna have a weld a little differently, okay? I'm not gonna get into that too much because basically setting up your welder is pretty simple. The biggest thing is making sure you know what what size your metal is. Here's a little gauge finder, so it tells you what size it is. This stuff that I have here is a patch. It is a 16 gauge. It's kind of hard to read, but that is a 16 gauge. There you go. 16 gauge. Right there. Super tight. Nice fit. I'm going to guess that this stuff here is probably roughly around the same. It might be 18 gauge, but 16 gauge would work for what I need it to be. It'll be a little easier to weld to. Chances are, if this is 18 gauge and that 16 gauge patch that I'm putting in, it's going to easily burn this out. So you got to watch out for that, but we'll set the welder up. We'll make it work accordingly. So this is just stock steel. I went up to, I think it was Menards, grabbed some. Nothing too crazy there. So I'm going to cut this patch out. I think we're going to run along these lines here, see what we've got going on, and then I'll start kind of peeling it up and looking at it from the backside. So give me a second and I'll be right back. All right, shut the air compressor off here. That way we can hear. But anyway, we got the little weld patch cut out here. Got it setting. You can see the inside of the door. Had some rust damage that's in there. While I've got this exposed, I'm probably going to media blast this area. Get that all cleaned up as best as possible. You can see some moisture got in there. Many things could have happened in here. Water could have been sitting in there. This door could have been set up like this, and moisture could have got down in here and kind of channeled. I'm not too worried about it. We'll get it cleaned up inside there. We'll get it coated with some POR. You can see the rust and stuff that's on the inside. Chances are I'd like to go a little further with this width-wise, but I think once I grind this, I'll have plenty of metal there to get it kind of cleaned up right at the edge so I can weld to it. And in fact, I'll take a little grinder here and I'll hit that real fast, see what it looks like. There we go. Kind of cleaned it up a little bit. You can see there is some metal there. Any of that specking, that black specks, is the rust pits. The deeper that goes, the harder it's going to be for that stuff to weld to. You'll have burn throughs and stuff like that. But this metal is also super thick, so I think we'll probably be okay. Next thing I'm going to do a quick grind of the outside area. Get this all prepped up so it's ready to go. Unfortunately, I'm going to end my time here today by cleaning this area up, doing some POR, getting that coated, and I may end up trying to get inside here to try to get some of that coated on the backside, because obviously the backside of the skin is going to have the same scale. So if I can get that coated with some POR, get that setting in there, then that's going to prevent this from rusting anymore. I've got the front side blasted already. The back side is going to be coated with paint. Once this is all said and done, base clear will seal the front and the back. It's just going to be rusting out like this from the inside. Now this car is not going to sit out in the sun. It's not going to get stored outside. It's not going to be driven daily. It's going to be only driven in decent conditions, outside 6 months of the year, only when it's sunny. I don't really drive these things in the rain. On occasion I do get caught in the rain, but it's one of those situations. I'm not worried about this anymore. Once I get it sealed up with POR on the backside, it's pretty much done deal. It's not going to get any more moisture from the back. As long as everything's draining correctly, we're not going to really have any issues with this. So let's get this all taken care of, then we'll come back and we'll start making our patch and we'll kind of get into it from there. All right, I want to touch base now that I got kind of caught up. Did a little corrosion protection on the inside, sandblasted a little bit. There's not much access in here, but I blew everything out, made sure that there's no scale on the backside as I was doing all these coatings. So what I ended up doing was putting POR on the inside. You can get this in various colors. POR, paint over rust, that's the name of it basically. They make different kits and stuff. This is a caliper kit for wheels and stuff. You can get high gloss like what this is. I don't care what it looks like on the inside of this. This is never going to be see the light in a day, but it's just what I had left over. It didn't take too much. It took maybe less than a half a pint. So to do what I did. Now I only went from here down a couple spots around the mirrors, around the door handle and the lock, spots that had bare metal on them. So back in the day, corrosion protection wasn't a situation of knowledge, so to speak. They would take the shell and they'd take the door skin and they'd put them back together at the factory, and it's bare metal on the backside. On the inside of this one, once I cut it, you're going to see the backside of this panel has a little bit of corrosion protection through here, as does that one. Has a little bit of corrosion protection, but generally everything is bare metal on the inside. There's things in here that I can't get to, and I'll see if I can get my flashlight in here so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. Yeah, here we go. So you can see on the inside there, that in there, bare metal. You can see the surface rust that's in there and what I could get coated. That's all bare metal. So back in the day, they didn't know that, hey, in order for cars to last, you have to coat the backsides of the metal. Today, we have that, it's called E-Coat. This is a panel that I like to use as an example. This is 2010, I think it came off of a Tahoe or something. This is the backside of the panel. Right there is your E-Coat. And this thing's been sitting outside for probably 5 years after I cut it out of the car. And look at that, not rusted yet. So it's one of those things that it does make a difference. That's why newer cars, yes, they do rust, but they don't rust as quickly as the old cars did back in the day when we were driving them on the gravel and the salt and everything else in the winter. So one of the situations that created rust in this was the belt molding. Probably had a water leak where the belt molding and the glass were sitting up against each other. Glass and the weather strips over time start to loosen, and everything just kind of opens up. Water will get in there, it'll run down the inside of the door, it'll puddle in the bottom. If these little plugs down at the bottom of the door aren't open and free, and they have dirt or moisture, or dirt or like leaves or anything like that inside there, moisture would just sit here like a sponge, and it's just bare metal back there. It's just going to start to rust. That's why the bottoms of these doors always are rusted out. Now, I do have a little bit of rust right here on the inside of that shell that I'm going to have to take care of. I really don't care though. That's underneath the actual door panel. So nobody's ever going to see that. It's kind of more or less, I think what happened here is this door was sitting up like this. Moisture got inside here and sat right up against these two flanges, and it basically just rusted itself out. So when you cut this stuff, when I cut that one, you're gonna see the inside brace is gonna look just like that. So it's one of those things that you just kind of have to take with a grain of salt, but prepare yourself to take care of. Now, this car's never gonna see the moisture again. It's gonna maybe see some rain here and there if I get caught in it, but it's not gonna be driven on the daily roads in the winter in the grime. So this right here, gonna make it last forever. I'm not worried about it. Now, I did do a gauge check on this steel here. It is 16 gauge, or excuse me, it is 18 gauge is what it ended up being. So use my little gauge thing. It came with my my welder, so it's kind of nice. 18 gauge. There you go. There you have it. We're gonna end up using that. This is 16 gauge patch panel. Like I said, little thick. We're not going to end up using this, and I'll show you two reasons. Main reason, it's going to be a little thicker, and this weld is going to go to the point of least resistance. So the back side of this metal is a little scaly. It's going to burn through holes on this side of the metal. Second reason is once I get up here to this edge, this is two pieces of metal layered on top of each other. This piece is not going to move, so if I have a thicker piece of metal, I'll have to grind it thinner in this area, basically right through here. That sounds like a pain in the butt. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to go and grab a little piece of 18 gauge steel to make this. Now you can see it is curved ever so slightly. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take it, flatten it out on the floor, make it so it's the actual piece. I'll set it up against the piece of panel, replacement panel that I have, and we'll get this traced out. Now when I cut it, I'm going to cut it to the outside edge of my trace line. That's going to compensate for that cutoff wheel. Now, one thing that I didn't mention in my last video is what I used to cut it off. I just used a cutoff wheel, air tool. You get the cutoff wheels themselves at Harbor Freight, and that's where I got these. You get like a 25 pack for 12 bucks. They're super cheap. Keep in mind though, when you use these things, if you push real hard and you push real hard while you're cutting, these things are going to turn to nothing really quickly. So if you let it just kind of cut in and just slowly take your time with it, it's going to turn out a lot nicer. And you're also not going to have that thing really destroy itself, because you can burn through those cutoff wheels super fast, and you don't need to do that. So we got this cut out. We're going to make the patch. The next thing you're going to want is a 90-degree die grinder. I have a 3M attachment on it. These come in 2-inch and 1-inch attachments. They're for roll lock wheels, is what you'll hear. They have a little 1/4-inch turn where you can turn them on lock them into place. And then these, they don't make these anymore. However, they make a new style. Same situation. You can cut these things down. As you can see, once it gets to the edge, that edge starts to wear away, and then these things kind of turn to worthless because it's just plastic at the edge of the wheel. If you cut them down with a side cutter, tin snips, and just kind of angle them, it cuts off that worn out edge, and you can use these things all the way down to that 1-inch. And that's why I keep that 1-inch style arbor on there, so I can use these things to the max potential. They're super expensive, so there's no reason to buy a whole bunch of them either, okay? So once we get going on this and I get the patch, you'll just have to stay tuned, I suppose. This stuff is going to take about 24 hours to dry. It should be tacky and 8, but it just sucks to work around. It gets on your hands, it stains your hands. It's the way it is. It seems like you wear gloves and you take the gloves off and this is what's under the gloves. So you got to watch out with that stuff. But we'll come back to this maybe next week. Sometime after work, I can make the patch, get everything ready to go. And then another thing you can grab while you're at Harbor Freight, if you're going to get ready to do this, is they make little magnets that are about this wide, and they have a little handle on them. They just kind of come up and they have a little handle. Mine are at work. Some of the guys were using them. So you can grab those and you can set them right on the edge of this patch and hold it into place. The tighter you make this patch, the better. Now, you can make it wider. That's fine. However, the wider you make this, you have to fill that in with weld. And that weld is going to burn off the least resistant spot. You got your new metal with no rust. You got rusty metal right here. Chances are you're going to get it too hot. It's going to start working its way over into the rusty metal. So the best thing that you can do is make it super tight. You're going to spend some time grinding the edges and trying to make this. I mean, this isn't even perfectly cut here. It's a little bulged out. We can make all that, but you have to make the patch wider than what you're trying to put in. So that's one of the things that we'll talk about a little bit once we get to that point. But that's it for right now. You're probably going to kill me. I'll show you what I'm doing. I have all these pieces and panels. I'm going to redo my car. I did it 20 years ago. The thing is, if I took my car apart and took the hood off of it, now I can't drive my car. Now I have a hood sitting that I have to get fixed, painted, repaired, put back on the car. So I'm going to redo my entire car with rust-free parts. And, well, that's not rust-free, but 90% of the stuff that I'm doing is rust-free. So I'm going to use these parts to redo my car so I can take everything apart on my car super quickly, and then I can put it back together and get it painted. So there's nothing really wrong with this. I painted it 20 years ago, but there's things that I didn't do that I wish I would have. Going back 20 years, now I know I should have done some things differently. One thing that bothers me, and I'll see if I can catch it. You see where that little bow is right there? That's a patch. I patched that lower section on that fender. When I patched it, I didn't take my time, and it sunk in a little bit. So I hate that. That's one of the things we're going to fix. We got nice rust-free fenders. We're going to go ahead and put it together the way I wanted to. Coated on the insides of the doors, new seam sealer on the bottom. I've got all NOS trim that goes on this, any piece of chrome that was on the car, front bumper, grill, headlight buckets, all NOS, all re-chromed. So everything on this car is going to be brand new once I get it done. And that's what I want. That's what I wanted long, long ago. But I never had time, and I never had a chance or the opportunity to do that. So we're doing that now. So then this will last for years and years to come. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the series. I hope you guys get some knowledgeable information out of this. I will go over bodywork, filler, things to use, stuff of that nature. And we're going to go through this whole thing bit by bit. So hopefully we'll get this thing done. My goal and timeline is next summer. It's going to be the same color, but it'll just all be painted and put together. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Drop any comments that you'd like to see in the comment section, and like the page. Check out my parts page if you need any parts for 75, 73 through 77 Monte Carlos, 73 to TO 77 GM parts at gmail.com. We'll catch you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.